Hello, I'm Catherine Townsend, President and CEO of the Trust for the National Mall, and I'm truly honored to welcome you here today to this monumental conversation on the road to 250. It's part of our ongoing series exploring the history, stories, and symbolism of the National Mall. Oops. Today's gathering is especially meaningful. On this day in 1793, the first cornerstone of the United States Capitol was laid, an extraordinary promise for our young nation. Just 2 years earlier, in 1791, Maryland and Virginia, newly admitted to the Union, ceded the land for the District of Columbia. Pierre L'Enfant soon envisioned a capital city whose heart would be the broad open space we now call the National Mall. We are privileged today to be joined by Governor Wes Moore and First Lady Dawn Moore. Governor Glenn Youngkin and First Lady Suzanne Youngkin. And of course, our longtime champion of the National Mall, David Rubenstein. The Trust is proud to be the nonprofit, nonpartisan, philanthropic partner of the National Park Service, dedicated to restoring, preserving, and enriching the National Mall and President's Park, the White House grounds. Just yesterday, on Constitution Day, we launched the National Mall Gateway, a first-of-its-kind digital and on-site civic learning platform connecting students, educators, and the public to its history and guiding principles, its landmarks, and the historic events that have shaped our nation. So you see a little card, check it out. It's on your table in front of you, and check it out. This new platform transforms America's most iconic public space into a dynamic civics classroom, inspiring generations to learn, engage, and grow as informed citizens, one of the greatest callings of our time. Please take a moment, I just said it again, take a moment, check out the QR code, and explore and let us know what you think. It is indeed a busy and exciting week for the Trust. Tonight, we also host the Congressional Pickleball Match on the Mall at 12th Street with 15 members of Congress from both sides of the aisle. And this weekend, we welcome 900 players and thousands of spectators for our third annual National Mall of Pickleball presented by Humana, celebrating unity through one of America's favorite sports. As we look ahead to the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, approaching in 2026, our mission takes on new urgency. We invite you to learn more about our monumental moment, the campaign for the National Mall, and join us. I want to thank today's generous sponsors, With Honor Action, Meridium. Where's Meridium? There you are. Blue Cross Blue Shield Federal Employee Program. Marlene Malik. And especially our presenting sponsor, I should back up a little bit, Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo has long supported the Trust and the National Mall, most recently through the Wells Fargo Education Center at the U.S. Park Police Horse Stables. Special thanks to our board member, Gigi Dixon of Wells Fargo, for her leadership and counsel. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Jason Rosenberg, Head of Public Affairs at Wells Fargo and a leader in philanthropy and community impact, to share a few welcome remarks.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Catherine. Thank you for joining us today. And one correction, it's the Honorable Gigi Dixon when we're around her, so want to make sure that we have that correct here. Wells Fargo has been proud to be a longtime supporter of the Trust for the National Mall. It began shortly after its inception and has been going for many decades. We're honored to help bring the new U.S. Park Police Horse Stables Education Center to the mall, between the Lincoln Memorial and the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. And we're also continuing proud to have our senior leaders like Gigi serve as the secretary of the board in an important position. Now, the National Mall truly is America's front yard. It's what showcases what makes our country great: unity, freedom, democracy. And as America's bank, with branches and centers and communities in nearly every state across the country, we have a deep appreciation for what the mall means to America, why preserving this space matters, and not just on the 4th of July, and not just every 4 years during an inauguration, but every day when millions of Americans and visitors can come and enjoy the mall, learn at its museums, and see what brings us all together. So it is a privilege to be part of this today, celebrating the upcoming 250th anniversary, and more importantly, the next 250 years. Now, I want to extend a special thank you to the Governor and First Lady of the state where I was born and raised, and generations of my family, the Governor and First Lady where I am raising my family today, and most importantly to David, who leads the most important sports franchise as a longtime Baltimorean. So I will turn it back over to you, Catherine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Wells Fargo, we are so proud of our successful partnership. Okay, now you get to have some lunch. So please feel free to have some lunch. Network, QR code, the gateway, please, and we'll see you shortly. We're going to start the conversation at 12:30.
I can't say that I'm shocked. This room is just loaded. And I'm sure you heard Catherine's plea out there to support our 250th anniversary. We'd love to have you there and also participate. It is an honor to join you for this monumental conversation, and I know both governors, and I'm really looking forward to listening to both of you. And as we're all eager to get this conversation started, I am pleased to help introduce today's moderator. He's a longtime champion for the National Mall and the Trust and its mission. He's well known for supporting the restoration of the Washington Monument after the 2011 earthquake, and famously, he was able to touch the top of the monument. And I really need to talk to you about how you did that. That's amazing. And most fitting for our gathering here at the Lincoln Library, he generously committed $20 million to bring the Lincoln Undercroft exhibit to life, set to open on July 4th, 2026, as part of America's 250th anniversary celebration. He is the past recipient of the Trust History Heroes and Hope Award and a member of our National Mall 250 cabinet. And finally, he is the co-founder and co-chairman of the Carlyle Group and chairman and CEO of, you guessed it, the Baltimore Orioles. I hope you're enjoying yourself. I warned him how tough it was to own teams. And he also is a great friend. I want to welcome my friend, David Rubenstein.
Sheila neglected to mention that her involvement in the mall is quite impressive as well. Not only has she received the award from the National Trust, but she helped put together the financing and was generously involved with the financing for the stables on the mall for the park service. So thank you very much for that. So I want to thank Catherine. Catherine Townsend has been the indefatigable leader of the National Trust for quite some time. And I think at the time I told her when she was thinking about the job not to take it, it's an impossible job. I was proven wrong many times because she's done a spectacular job and has raised more money than anybody thought would be possible. And the hardest thing she's done, though, is to get 2 governors and 2 first ladies to show up at lunch at the same time. And that's a very difficult thing to do, as all of you probably can imagine. So I want to thank Catherine for her indefatigable effort on behalf of the National Trust, and thank you for bringing this together. Let me just introduce the guests we have, and I'm going to bring them up, give them an award, and then we're going to have a conversation. So let me start with my former business partner, Glenn Youngkin. Glenn Youngkin is a native of Virginia, as all of you are not surprised to know. He was a basketball star and recruited by Coach K, to play at Duke University, where Glenn's father had been a rebounding champion. But Glenn decided not to go to Duke University, to Duke's regret, and went to Rice University, where he became the captain of the basketball team. Later went to Harvard Business School, was a Baker Scholar, which means he's in the top 5% of his class. Came to Washington at McKinsey, and then I managed to hear about him and recruited him to Carlisle, where he was, for about 25 years, one of our star employees, and later rose up to be the co-chief executive, and then left to run for governor of Virginia, which I told him he would never get elected to do position because, he had no background in this, so I was wrong again. But Glenn has done an incredible job, and Glenn, thank you very much for making the time available. Glenn is also with his wife, Suzanne, the parents of 4 children. Glenn has been married and Suzanne for 31 years. And Suzanne, his wife of 31 years, born in Arkansas, grew up in Texas, and they are the parents of 3 sons, 1 daughter who's getting married in 2 weeks. Is that right? So congratulations. And like many first ladies, she's learned that you have to work full-time at the job and you get paid nothing for doing it. And Suzanne has done a spectacular job as the First Lady of Virginia, and thank you very much, Suzanne, for being here. And I'll talk to her a little bit later about an event that happened not long ago where quite dangerous situation for her and her children, and it's not really been that well known, but I do think it's important to let people know what she did and on behalf of many people at that time. The governor of my home state, Wes Moore, is somebody that I've admired from afar for a while because I was on the Johns Hopkins Board of Trustees, and ultimately Wes, a graduate of Johns Hopkins, was being put on the board. And I read the resume and I said, it's hard to believe anybody could do all this. He went to Johns Hopkins, raised by a single mother, went to Johns Hopkins and became a star football player there, and also a Rhodes Scholar, Phi Beta Kappa, and went to Oxford. And after Oxford, he volunteered to go into the military. Very often, people who are Rhodes Scholars say, well, I can coast through life. I don't have to go into the military in combat as well, not just go into the military. Went into combat in Afghanistan and risked his life on many occasions, for which he's won the Bronze Star. Thank you. But as if that wasn't enough, he also was a White House Fellow. And after he finished his White House fellowship, as he was finishing it, he came to see me, and I said, look, the highest calling of mankind is private equity. Go into private equity. But he said, no, I want to do something more important in life than private equity. I said, what could there possibly be more important? But ultimately, he went to New York and was involved in a philanthropic project for quite some time, the Robin Hood Foundation. He was the president and CEO of it for quite some time. Came back and was elected governor in his first foray into politics. And I remember telling people that he had no chance of getting elected governor because he hadn't run for anything before. So my prognostication is not very good, either Glenn or the governor of Maryland. His wife, Dawn, is a native of New York, but she went to the University of Maryland, and that gave her Maryland bona fides. And she and the governor have been married for 18 years. They have 2 children, and they are indefatigable supporters of Maryland as well, and indefatigable supporters of the best baseball team in Maryland. So thanks to the governor for that. And I was just, I'd like to call up, if I could, the first ladies, I could, and just give them our award, and you could bring it to me, and I'll give it to them. So, okay, can we bring it over? Okay. Okay, so let me just, I'm going to drop it. No. All right. So this is the award that we give out to our most valued supporters of the mall, the History, Heroes, and Hope Award, and it's presented today on behalf of the Trust for everything you've done to support the mall and to support the whole region. And I want to thank both of you for what you've done. Let me give you, Dawn, yours, and ask you if you make a few comments. And then, Suzanne, if you'd like to say something as well, let me give you yours, okay? All right, do you want to say a word or two about anything?
I won't spoil the great panel we're going to have, but I would just like to say thank you, David. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you to each and every one of you who have supported this historic and most tremendous effort for our country. I feel very grateful, along with my husband, to be here with all of you and to receive this amazing award.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we know that everyone in this room is here for purpose. All of you give generously of your time, of your treasure, of your talents. We're so grateful, and we'd like to encourage you to continue to support the Trust for the National Mall, because we know that as our front yard, it is a place where we as Americans, an American family, gather. And that's such a privilege. And Glenn and I are so honored to be here and so appreciative of this very special honor. Thank you very much.
All right, so, Glenn, when you were growing up in Virginia, did your parents ever bring you to the mall?
Well, first of all, welcome everybody. Welcome. And I want to add my thanks to the great comments from both the First Ladies, to all of you for supporting the National Mall. America's front yard is really important, not just to Washington and not just to Maryland and Virginia, but to our entire nation and the world. And so the fact that all of you are willing to come together, not just to support it, but more importantly, to celebrate it, that's what today is all about. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. So David, one of the joys of growing up in Virginia is we are steeped in America's history all the time, all the time. And one of the great gifts is in elementary school and particularly in middle school, most of Virginia students get a chance to come to Washington, D.C. and visit not just our heads of state and places where government is housed, but the National Mall. And when I was in what is now middle school, we took that trip. And I remember that trip like it was yesterday. I remember it because we had not the best lunches, which is something that every 12 or 13-year-old's really focused on. But I remember the impact that it had on me because I had a chance to see all of the great historical leaders, to see the great museums that told our nation's history. But on top of that, I had a chance to see it all in one place. And that's what's so exciting.
So you did come here.
We did.
Okay. So, equal time, did you come here as well? Ever? Your mother ever bring you here?
You know, I actually did not spend a whole lot of time in the mall, honestly, coming up. My appreciation for the mall really did not start until I got older. And, you know, one of the things I come to love and appreciate about it is it's a celebration of this country, but it's not a celebration of the country's perfection. It's an honest portrayal about the American journey. You know, I love the fact that the mall is a place where, you know, we can talk about people and celebrate people who did heroic actions at a time when our country was really struggling with itself, struggling with others, but how it's a celebration of people who just reflect the fact that, you know, that when you think about in America's most complicated moments, there was really two things that have gotten us through, and that's God's grace and heroic actions, heroic leadership. That's it. And so, you know, one of the things I really came to appreciate about the mall as I got older is that, you know, that this is a place that can have an acknowledgement of the Vietnam War and our Vietnam War veterans. That this is a monument that can have, you know, have a tribute to Abraham Lincoln, our leader during the middle of a brutal Civil War. That this is a place that can have a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a person who helped to lead this country when, you know, during a time, and in many cases, and still many times right now, where the racial history of the U.S. is still being pressure tested. And so it's one of the things that I did not have a full appreciation and a full love of the mall until I was able to really appreciate why it's so important to us.
All right, Suzanne, you grew up in Texas, so you probably weren't coming to the mall all the time, but when
I
you
was
were...
not. I did not get to come in 8th grade.
But when you were raising your family with Glenn in Virginia, did you ever bring them to the mall or any museums or anything like that?
We absolutely did. The very first time I visited the mall, I was 21 years old. I came here as a summer intern in between my junior and senior years of college. I lived in the dormitories at Georgetown University and really immersed myself as a young person in everything that DC had to offer, including co-ed softball on the mall, which is a fan favorite of young people. So it's been a very important part of our lives, my life, since then, when Glenn was getting out of Harvard Business School and we were discerning where to go. Virginia, to me, was a tremendously exciting proposition. His family was here, which made sense, but I was just thrilled to get back and to learn more.
Okay. Let me ask you a question I teased a bit before. When there was the tragedy recently in Texas, there was a flash flood. Where were you at that time?
I was in Texas on the Guadalupe River, and I was awoken at 3:50 a.m. by my nephew, who is in the Navy. He's down in Pensacola. He was in his boxer shorts covered with debris, and he came into my room and said, "Aunt Sissy, you've got to get up now and get out. The water's rising." And all 4 of our children were there. Glenn was going to join us the next day. We had 38 people in our little stretch of the river, and 37 of us were able to scramble to safety on a hillside in that storm. Right. We lost 1 young man.
So, as I understand it, you had the opportunity to take a helicopter to get out, but you chose not to do that. Is that right?
I wouldn't make my proposition that glamorous. What I would say is there was obviously concern because, as the Moores know, our incredible detail is so dedicated to our safety, to our well-being. They are the most brave men and women I know, and I was separated from them. They were on the other side of the river. So I did not take that helicopter because we had food and water, and we knew that there were we're about 2.5 miles from Camp Mystic. Right. And so we saw helicopters going to rescue, and we knew it was very important that they continued to do that work. Okay,
so Dawn, you went to University of Maryland when you were in College Park. Did you ever say, I'm going down to the mall to have a good time, or not really?
Yeah. Well, I did sometimes, and I just want to thank Suzanne for sharing that story.
Thank you, Dawn.
Wes and Glenn were on a panel, and Glenn shared that story, and very inspired by your bravery, and thank God for your safety.
Thank you, Dawn. I appreciate it.
So I grew up in Queens, as you shared, and I remember calling my cousin when I was deciding what college I was going to go to. And she said, well, if you want to be involved in public service, you need to be in the DMV. And so I chose University of Maryland College Park. And its proximity to DC was perfect, and that was our city. And so I would come down to Haynes Point and to see all of the monuments, and spent a lot of time down here. When I was at University of Maryland, I revived, along with some other students, the NAACP on campus, and we took a group of students down to the Million Man March to support those who were marching on the mall at that time. And so, and Wes and I spent time there when President Obama was inaugurated. So we have many amazing memories with our family and our friends, and it was definitely a place that inspired me.
Okay, great. So Glenn, what has been the most enjoyable part about being governor of Virginia?
I thought you were going to ask me an easy one, like which one of your children do you love most? I mean, Wes and I have talked about this before. the privilege of going to work every day, and in my case, serving 8.8 million Virginians, and recognizing that we have an opportunity every single day to make things better tomorrow than they were yesterday, to drive economic development and job creation, to make sure that our schools are educating our students to be prepared for a future, to make our communities safer, to overhaul the way we think about behavioral health so that we can meet Virginians where they are when they need to be met. The work every day is extraordinary. And there's not a day I go by where I don't thank Virginians. Thank you for hiring me. Thank you for hiring Suzanne, because it has been absolutely beyond any of our dreams at how purposeful we felt every single day. I have to say, one of the great aspects of being governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia is the history in Virginia. And I say oftentimes, and I apologize, first of all, to all of my friends who might hail from one of the other former 12 colonies, but America was made in Virginia. And, you know, we can't help but just start with the father of our country, George Washington. And the fact that Thomas Jefferson penned the most immortal words written in this hemisphere, in my view, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, and they're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I mean, this was a remarkable sentiment that, by the way, America failed at the beginning, and yet was able to correct. And yesterday, the father of our Constitution was once again reminding us all that we the people does mean we the people. We the people. James Madison's words were extraordinary. And so, as governor of Virginia, I am standing on the shoulders of giants every day. Patrick Henry was our first governor, Thomas Jefferson was our second, and this other guy no one's ever going to remember, Glenn Youngkin, was our 74th. But at the end of the day, that, David, gives us grounding, I believe, to discuss really important topics, really important issues, and to address them based on principles and values that oftentimes started in Virginia.
So what state in the United States out of the 50 has had the most presidents come from that state?
I think it might be Virginia.
I think so,
Yeah.
right. Okay, and why is it that's the only state with only one term allowed, consecutive term? Why is that?
Well, the founders of our nation were also the founders of the Commonwealth of Virginia's Constitution. And if you remember, there was this person named King George III, and they didn't particularly like monarchs and kings. And so there was a real hesitancy to deposit too much power into the executive branch. And so governors at the beginning of Virginia served one-year terms. They could serve 3 of them. And along the way, they found that to be kind of cumbersome. And so the Constitution was then changed to give a governor 1 4-year term. And it's never changed since. And I have to say, it keeps you focused every single day to make sure that you're delivering on 8 years worth of work in 4 years.
Right. So what's the most enjoyable part about being the governor of Maryland?
You know, I think about one of the moments that happened when I made the decision that I wanted to do this in the first place. And I was running an organization, it's one of the largest poverty-fighting organizations in this country. And, you know, one issue that if I could end the issue of child poverty and give it all up, I would. It's just the one issue that I'll literally stay up at night thinking about how unfair it is as a society that any humane society could allow children to grow up in poverty. And I remember working with a former governor on an issue of the child tax credit. We were trying to get them to make a change in the child tax credit, how we could actually half the number of children in child poverty, all this kind of stuff. And I told him he should talk about it in the State of the State, and you know, gave him the line he should use in the State of the State. I turned into a speechwriter. It was great. And I remember getting an advance copy of his State of the State. And there was nothing in there about the child tax credit and nothing in there about child poverty. And I was a little upset. And I remember calling up the head of public policy of the organization that I ran, and I was just kind of like ranting. And after I breathed, after like 5 minutes, he finally said to me, he said, listen, we worked for 6 months to try to get him to include a line in the speech. But what if you could write the whole speech? And that was the point, is that as a governor, you get to write the whole speech. And I'll never forget how my first State of the State address that I gave to the state of Maryland, I probably devoted about 15 minutes of that speech about what we were going to do to address the issue of child poverty inside the state of Maryland, to include making the child tax credit permanent and actually having an enhanced earned income tax credit. And so that's what I love about it, is that, you know, when you're campaigning, people come up to you and they tell you, you know, here's an issue that I care deeply about. And when you're campaigning, you can say, this is really important. I want to do something about it. But when you're governor, you can actually do something about it.
So, Suzanne, when you finish as First Lady, what will you feel that is the most important thing you've accomplished as First Lady of the state of the Commonwealth of Virginia?
Well, there's no blueprint, as Dawn knows.
What's the compensation you get to be First Lady?
I'm still waiting to see what I get in January.
Thanks, David. Thanks for that. That's great.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Yeah,
Good idea, Susan.
Yeah, good idea. No, you got to wait some years. Yeah, no, there is no blueprint. I don't think there's any right or wrong. I think knowing the First Ladies like I do, we have the distinct privilege of socializing with one another, of getting to advocate on issues together through the National Governors Association and through other organizations. I think our paramount job is to make sure that these gentlemen can do their paramount job. And so I do think that we all have a simple understanding that our priority is always home, family, keeping the trains running, because these guys are out changing the world, which is a privilege. But one of the things that I've been distinctly focused on, and I'm not going to dig into it here, but we lost a young friend in 2020 to overdose, and in particular fentanyl. Fentanyl is a plague of our moment in time. So when I came in, I just listened and tried to prioritize what I was hearing in terms of the ways that Virginians were suffering the most. And substance use disorder, mental health, and behavioral issues was something that in particular was a problem for our children. So we dug in there, and very proud of the work we've done, and we've seen not only our overdose death rate decrease substantially, but we've been working tirelessly to make change so that people do have access to the care that they need.
David, if I could.
Sure.
Suzanne is incredibly humble. She jumped into fentanyl with not just both feet, but with everything she had. She organized our public safety secretariat. She organized our education secretariat. She organized our health and human resources secretariat. And we went to work under a banner of It Only Takes One. We used legal routes. We pleaded with children. We supplied them with naloxone so that they would have an antidote. We educated parents, and the work that she did was just absolutely foundationally impactful. And I will say Virginia has now led the nation in reducing fentanyl overdoses at 45% reduction over the course of the last year. And so you deserve that.
Dawn, what would you say you're most proud of having achieved so far as First Lady, and what are you're planning to do going forward?
Well, as Suzanne said, you know, we, I think, have the privilege to make this job what we want it to be. And I see myself as, and the office of the First Lady, in service to the governor's office. And my husband ran on the what he learned in the military, which was to leave no one behind. And so when I think about the planning of what we do in our office and the work that we do, I always have that at the forefront, because it is no longer just a campaign line or a slogan. It has become the governing philosophy of the Moore Miller administration. And so I have done work that I'm very proud of around military families. I was the first lady in almost 20 years to testify before the General Assembly on the importance of hiring our active military spouses, because they were the ones who were often, highly qualified and moving around, serving our country, serving our state, but often not being able to find jobs that fulfill the work that they are able to do. And I love the ability to take our cultural experiences. David, you and I have worked on the second leg of the Preakness together. And it is something that in Maryland, the equestrian industry is a $3 billion industry in Maryland. And so that is one of our crown jewels. And I was excited to work alongside so many people with that great initiative. And then I care deeply about women's economic empowerment. I've done much work around that. Arts and culture. We have taken our governor's mansion and turned it into a place that is representative of all Marylanders. So I'm very proud of the work that we have been able to do.
Okay. Glenn, you will not be governor in next July, I think, right? You'll be termed out. But what are you doing to help the Commonwealth of Virginia get ready for the 250th anniversary? Any thoughts about what you are doing or anything connected to the mall?
Well, once again, Virginia sits in a rather advantageous place. So much of what we're celebrating did happen in Virginia. And so we actually started our effort 3 years ago. And the Virginia 250 initiative came together with an enormous amount of support. We actually funded into it from the General Assembly. We put together a world-class staff, actually chaired by Carly Fiorina, and we went to work. 3 years ago, Virginia hosted in Williamsburg the first national A Common Cause for All convention, very much like Virginia did back in 1774. We came together because we thought it was really important to make sure that other states were doing the same type of preparation. And lo and behold, in our second, which was last year, we had more states. And this past year, we had over 40 states participate in this Common Cause for All. It is underpinned by a statewide effort to engage every Virginian, a statewide effort to educate every Virginian, and a statewide effort to inspire every Virginian in what this anniversary really means. This celebration is far more than fireworks and tall ships. Although I love fireworks and I love tall ships, and they're going to sail from Baltimore Harbor into Chesapeake Bay Harbor at one point. But this moment for us as a nation is a moment we cannot let pass without reminding ourselves the foundational principles that led to the formation of this greatest country on earth. And we can't allow this moment to pass without engaging particularly this next generation fully so that they too can understand that. We have a massive education effort underway. We have a mobile 250 exhibit that is making its way to every single middle school in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I just bumped into it yesterday and had a chance to tour it, and it is spectacular. And in 20 minutes, you can learn a lot of the basics. We have had essay writing contests from our middle school students and high school students on what freedom means to you. We have rolled out a civics bee that, honestly, I'm glad I don't have to compete in it against the 8th graders. We have events in every jurisdiction across the Commonwealth of Virginia. And of course, one of the things that Suzanne and I really enjoyed is we've just rolled in our 4th rendition of the art experience at the Governor's Mansion, inspired candidly by what we saw in Maryland before we came in, that the Governor's Mansion is a place to share your state's history and diversity and experiences. And so we have a patriotic exhibit now, which really brings to life Virginians celebrating America. So David, we're really inspired, and I think some of this is the fact that I'm here now and Suzanne's here now and we get to do this, and we want to make sure that we're well prepared in 2026 to celebrate.
Okay. Governor, you will still be in office in July of next year. What are you doing to prepare for the 250th and any connection to the mall?
Yes, there is going to be a connection to the mall, and we want it to be something that for every single Marylander, that they feel welcome and seen and heard in this entire process. You know, one of the first things that we did after I became governor was realize that this was going to fall under our watch. And we knew this was something we were going to take very seriously, and so created the Maryland 250 Commission. In fact, my friend Michelle Johnson, serving as chair, is doing a remarkable job. And really is bringing an idea that this is not just going to be a celebration of the what, but a celebration of the who and a celebration of the how. That this is going to be a celebration of the fact that, you know, as Glenn takes very deep pride in the amount of American history that falls in the borders of Virginia, that we take that same pride in that state of Maryland. That, you know, the state of Maryland is where Francis Scott Key wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. That the state of Maryland is, you know, is the place of not just, you know, well, where that Virginian, George Washington, resigned his commission in the state of Maryland, where for the first time in our nation's history, where General George Washington walked into our chambers and he gave a speech that I actually have a copy framed in my office, where he gave a speech where he said, the power doesn't belong to me. The power belongs to the people. And let the people decide where they're going to go next. And General George Washington walked into our chambers as the leader of the Continental Army, and he walked out as a farmer. The first time that we had a peaceful transfer of power in our nation's history, and every single one of our elections, including mine and Glenn's, have been built on that foundation. We want to tell that story. We want to tell the story of the watermen and the chicken farmers. We want to tell the story of both the glories that we've had within the state of Maryland, but also the tragedies that we've had in the state of Maryland. And talk about how the beauty of the 250th is not the 250th is a completion of something. It's a continuation of arguably the greatest experiment in world history, which is this country. This idea that we're bringing people from all over to tell that regardless of backgrounds, that we're here now as part of a larger mosaic that the whole world looks at and admires. And so we're very proud of the work that's happening with the commission. And we're very proud that we think this is going to be a chance for Maryland to play an important role and a real celebration of this larger American journey that's taking place.
So, in the time we have remaining, just curious, clearly, to be governor of these states, you don't need to have the same hairstyle. Your hairstyle is a little unique. Was that one you always adopted, or you always had that?
Well, you know, it's actually funny. I was sent to military school when I was like 13 years old because of some issues that I was having. And I started shaving my head there, and then eventually just stopped growing. I was like, well, I guess I'll just keep it then. So, but I figured it would. If I ever tried to grow my hair like Glenn, I would probably embarrass myself pretty historically. So,
and if I wore my hair like Wes, it wouldn't go over very well.
So, final question, Glenn and Wes. I have observed as a student of American history myself that in the long history of this country, there has never been a case where a governor of Virginia ran for president against the governor of Maryland. Never happened. Do you think that's a precedent should be broken at some point, or you haven't thought about it?
Well, so David, I'm a little bit of a student of history, and there's never been an owner of the Baltimore Orioles run for president either.
and can I say just very briefly? Actually, I think this really does, even this moment kind of does symbolize the pretty amazing journey of this country. Because if you think about it, think about where the founders and the originators, their idea that we would have a celebration of America's 250th with, you know, a governor who'd never run for office before in his life, with a Jewish kid from Baltimore who has become one of the great philanthropists of his time, of a kid who grew up from an immigrant single mom who became the first black governor in the history of their state. Like, to think about what this means in celebration of a 250th of this country, this really is a pretty remarkable moment.
Okay. So I don't think we can...
David, if I
Glenn?
could. And what you see is actually true. Wes and I do a lot together.
Yeah.
We co-chair things together. We work on important topics together. We don't agree on everything, but we work together. And I think we're at a moment in our nation, particularly with the horrific events of last week, to remind ourselves that it is the foundational principles of this nation, foundational principles that were written down but had to be won and defended, foundational principles that each generation inherits from the previous and has to take forward. And so as we think about the goal on the National Mall, as we head into this year-long celebration of America, we also need to recognize that we have to pass on the baton to the next generation, and that these truths must once again be stood up for. Our First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, freedom of religious expression. The fact that we do have a document, the Constitution, that has now become the oldest living constitution in the world ever. This is America, and why Wes and I, and I think our spouses and David were so excited to join you today, to join you in an effort to bring America together, to bring America to a place, the National Mall, that's more than buildings. It's a place that events happen, that formed history. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech changed history. Inaugural speeches, we may each have our own favorite. I still love Ronald Reagan's speech in 1981. Moments where we as a nation expressed ourselves. And finally, a mall that stands as a place of gathering today, whether it's pickleball or softball or walks or runs. This is why this space is so important, and it's why I believe the work that you all are doing, supported by people all over the country and the world, is so important. And so I just want to again reiterate a thank you to all of you for caring deeply for America, caring deeply for helping all Americans and everyone from around the world understand what we stand for. And I cannot wait to be standing among you next year on July 4th, 2026, celebrating the 250th anniversary of this great nation. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.